Hello everybody and welcome back. My name's Angela and I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady. Right, so today I am bringing you the information that you will need to make these different snowmen and of course our Santa. Now this is a bolt-on video, okay, that's why it's marked A at the end of the number. And the reason for bolt-on is each one of these patterns, the basic base of it is exactly the same. Okay, so all you're going to be doing is changing the yarn colours within the pattern to be able to then create the one that you're after. Now mine do look in different sizes. That is because I've used a different hook or different yarn. So grab yourself a notepad and a pen, or be prepared to flip between this video and the video that I'm just going to link up here and in the description box down below. Right, so the first pattern you will have seen would have been our gingerbread person with his little buttons. Not his gumdrop buttons. Right, so our little guy here is still holding his gift card, if you can call it that. Right, so let's take that out so you can have a closer look. As you can see, the gift card slides into the bottom there. What you could do is be extra cheeky and roll up some cash and stick it into, like, up the head. That's if you're being extra nice to that child or person that you'll be giving it to. But other than that, here is our little gingerbread man. Now you will have already seen the pattern for this because, as I said, it's the one that is linked. Now to change him from him to the snowman, okay, all you're doing is changing your colors. So you would work the pattern exactly the same, all right, just changing out the brown for the white and the white for the red, or whatever color you have for the hat, the mittens and his scarf. And then instead of putting on your gumdrop buttons, you're putting on beads. But remember, if you don't have beads or buttons, you can still use the gumdrop method. Okay, so you can still have your guy looking like that and it representing coal, just like I have done in this one. All right, so for this one, your changes are the fact that I've used the gumdrop buttons to place my coal, which I've done in grey, and I've done a coal nose, right, with his cheeky smiley face, which I've done slightly different, and I'll probably will do it different again before I send it out, because this is the one I'm changing up. And this one has stick arms. With a few moments I will show you that adaptation once I've shown you Father Christmas. Right, so for Father Christmas, again, I have used the same pattern as before. All right, now the difference here is where you are alternating the color changes for his belt, and then of course you'll be changing color for his head, and you get to put his little button nose in as you work around the head, and then the extra bits are the beard and the fluffy bit on the hat. Right, so what I'm going to now do is scoot back, because you know how to do this one, because it's just a carbon copy of this one minus this section here. Okay, so it's carbon copy. Right, so first up we will be doing this one here. Right, so now we are going to put our arms on our snowman. Right, so what you want to do here is grab some brown yarn or stick coloured yarn, double it up, or you can get away with using an Aran weight yarn or a 4, I believe it is in the US. Right, so now what we're going to do is go sort of 3 bobbles down, pop your hook through stitch on both sides, the front and back, pull your loop through, And now we are going to chain 10. Okay, just like that. Now we are going to slip stitch back 3. If you can keep this stitch work quite tight, it will make it easier. Now we are going to chain up 4. And in the second chain from the hook, we will do another slip stitch. And then we will slip stitch in the next 2 chains. Now we will pick up our original chain and we will slip stitch into that as well. And we'll do that all the way back to our snowman. And our last stitch, we're going to slip stitch back into where we started, and that will tie it off lovely. So pull up a loop, then what we're going to do is just weave our ends up and down our arm to make sure that it's hidden away, and then we're going to repeat the process on the other side. And then that's his arms done. Right, so I hope you like the way the arms were made up on this one. They're quite malleable, you can move them around. My one seemed to have a thing about picking noses on Santa, but there we go. But as I said, you can tie them up, you can pin them to the body, you can do what you like with these arms, even leave them there so it looks like he's ready for a hug. Now on to Santa. Right, so here we are now for the Santa. The additional extras that I have are a little bit of ribbon to hang him on the tree from his hat. Then I have got 2 black buttons. Now these are 8mm round buttons. I got them from June. And then the last bit is his belt buckle, also purchased from June. The details will be in the description box down below. Right, so for the Santa, we are swapping out the brown from the gingerbread to red and black and a skin colour pink for our Santa. So you're going to work your pattern up as normal until you get to round number 10. That's where you will put in your black, and you'll do round 10 and 11 in black. Then you swap back and do a row 12 all the way through to round 16. Okay, and on the start of round 16 we will be changing to pink, and you will finish it up in pink. Then of course we make our hat in red and white with the bubble and the edging here, and I will show you how to add on the beard in a few moments. Okay, so I have attached this over where the join is. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see it, and I've done that purposely because the rows are slightly off one slightly above the other. There are tricks to the trade for being able to get a completely straight seam, but when I made this guy I didn't know it, so I wasn't able to do it. And so I worked out that just by laying it over the top it looks pretty straight, and we can blame it on his wibbly wobbly belly for not being straight. Okay, so when it comes to attaching your beads, and what you're going to be doing is placing them just above your bobble stitch, one row up and on either side. It's that simple. And then I'm just about to show you how to make this section here. Creating Santa's beard. Now, excuse the fact that the top of this is not closed yet. I've got another 2 rows of closure to add on. That's because this Santa will be shown in a minute, a bit further on in the video. Right, so what we're going to do is we're going to place our hook through his head, front and back, and like he was shown in the Gingerbread Man. Then we are going to take our yarn and we're going to pull up a loop. Now we are going to surface crochet along this section, and we're going to surface crochet all the way around for where we want our beard to be, because then we are going to be working back into the surface crochet to add our stitches. And so let's get going. Now my Father Christmas will look a little bit different to yours because I haven't closed the end yet, because this Father Christmas is going to get changed up in a little bit, and you'll see what I mean at the end of the video. But we'll keep working along, popping our hook through of both parts and pulling up our loop for our surface crochet. There's no fixed amount of stitches on this one. It is just what you feel like as you're doing it. And don't worry about how neat the back looks, because of course that is going to be hidden with the hat, which is why I've made the hat as big as I have. And the good thing about the beard is it also covers any little joins that you see as you're going round, especially with the neck section. Sorry, I just realised I was moving him off screen. Right, so once you get to your last stitch there, what we're going to do is hook over and just pull up the loop to bring our yarn to the front. Now we're going to turn around and into going through both sections of that loop that you just created with your surface crochet. We are going to pull up a loop, hook over and do a single crochet. Now on the sides you do a single crochet through each of them as you're going, each of your surface crochet loops as you're going down. Oh, I'm having a mare there. There we go. Right, so and now we're getting close to the bottom. Now this is what I'm calling the bottom section, the piece that's running nice and straight along. Now count 2 up on your surface crochet, okay, and when you get to that point we are now going to do a half double crochet into those 2 stitches. Okay, so that's a half double crochet, into those stitches there, which gives us a bit of a puff out. Right, so now along this bottom section of stitches you are going to do double crochets. Now, as I said, your count may be different to mine. It really doesn't matter. All right, as long as you've got the general idea, which is single crochets on the side, half double crochets on the edge, and then double crochets along where his chin would be, you're gonna be sorted. All right, and it's going to look the same. Oh, there's me talking over. I am now up to my 2 corners, so I'm back to the half double crochet and the next 2, followed by single crochets in the remaining ones that are running up the side of his head. There you go, and when you get to the end you can tie off. Now if you want a fuller beard than this, all we do is we turn our work and we run a slip stitch down. So remember, this is a added this is for extra depth in the beard. So when you get to your 2 corner double crochets, we'll do a stitch, then we do 1 half double crochet, and then double crochet along until you get to your corner, and then just before our corner into our next stitch we will place a half double crochet, and then we go single crochet, single crochet, and now we slip stitch back to the top. And then tie off your end, and there you go, your snowman now has a nice full beard. Now what you can also do is surface crochet him on some whiskers and a little smile, but the choice is completely up to you. I will let you have a play with that now you've learned how to surface crochet and how to build up from it. Now we are going to move on to his belt buckle. Now I haven't got any gold or any silver solid thread, so I'm going to be using the white one for now, because I'm going to be taking this out and putting myself on a little belt buckle onto this little guy. So this is just for display purposes. Right, so again we will be surface crocheting. This time what we're going to do is we are going to work over this join. Okay, because of course they're not always the neatest, but by doing it this way and working over it, or attaching your belt buckle over the top of it, it hides your joins. Now I've actually purposely created this to make it look bigger so that I can show you the trick easier on camera. Right, so for this one we are going to be doubling up our yarn if you're using a DK. Okay, so what we're going to do is double up, and we are surface crocheting, so of course we pull that through. Now this is where you want to keep your stitches at a reasonable tension, not too tight, not too loose, because ideally we don't want to have to go around again or add any extra stitching to make the belt buckle pop. So we're going to be laying our stitches as they're intended, nice and flat. So your first one comes up where your join is. You will then pop your hook into the second stitch along, pull up your yarn and pull it through. Okay, now we will do stitch number 3. We will do the same, and stitch number 4. I'm so sorry about the squeaking, but that is the silver thread that's doing that to me. This is why I don't normally work with it on camera. Get through there. There we go. And so yours will be neater than this, and your surface crocheting will sit over the top of the black and the red join. Mine isn't, because I've done such a wonky job of it. Right, so once you've done your 3 there, you're going to turn your work and we are going to drop down 1 stitch and pull up a loop. Now we're going to drop down 2 stitches and pull up your loop and drop down 3 stitches, pull up your loop. Now at this point we're going to turn our work again and we are going to go across 3 stitches. And then put a 4th one in, turn and make sure you've got them both, and then turn your work. Now we are going to be coming back up to meet this one here. Right, so we're doing another 3. So you've got your 3 like that. Now we're going to pull up a nice amount of yarn because we're going to be doing our little sewing trick. Right, cut the end. Don't pull it tight, remember. Now we thread this onto our needle. Like that. Now we will go from top to bottom under both of the surface crochet stitches. So remember there's 4 strands there, so it's under the 4 strands. Pull your hook through, your needle, sorry, through, and then place it back into the stitch, the previous stitch. Pull that through. And then just gently manipulate it until it's sitting the same as the other stitches. Okay, now remember mine looks a lot more untidy there than what yours will when you've done yours, but by rights, and that will work up, and if you've got that in the right place you will not see any red here because you'll be working that row going up, and then you'll be working across and then down. So when it's done, it will be sitting as if it was sitting along this section here, coming down along this section along the bottom, and then coming back up again. I hope that makes sense, and I hope yours turns out a lot tidier than mine. Now this is what the back of surface crocheting looks like. I thought I would show you that because it shows you the clear square box there that you would be getting on the front with your stitch. Okay, and so if you can always work the stitch from the back so that it guides, you'll be able to guide the stitch a lot better that way, but that's just a cheeky trick. Okay, so for mine I'm using a sparkly thread here, but you can use whatever you got to hand. Remember, the one that I initially showed you, which is this little guy here, has just got plain white yarn on. Let's pop him back over here. Oh, get out of the way. Right, so for this hat, what we're going to do is we are going to pick a stitch, any stitch going along, and pop your hook through. Okay, and then pull up a loop and give it a tight squidge. Now we're going to chain one. Okay, ideally with this join, just put it to the back of your hat, okay, because then no one's going to see it. Then you're going to chain one, and you're going to go back into the same stitch. You're going to do a single stitch, followed by a chain one, followed by a single stitch, and we're going to repeat that all the way around. So it's a single stitch, chain one, and a single stitch. Again, into the next stitch, chain one, stitch one, sorry, chain one, stitch one, into the next stitch, chain one, stitch one, chain one, stitch one, chain one, stitch one, stitch one, chain one, stitch one, and then we do that all the way around, and that will create a cute little Santa fringe. Now another option you can use is a fairy yarn, and then all I would say is do a half double crochet in your fairy yarn all the way around, because you won't need the detail here because you won't be able to see it. Right, so just a little tip, don't panic if you think, crikey, this hat has become massive compared to the other ones, because what we're actually going to do is be tucking this slightly. When sewing it, it's going to be longer at the back than it is at the front, so that way it creates what looks like a bit more beard and a bit more of Santa's hair. Right, so I'm just coming up on the last stitch now. On this one I like to just chain one, okay, and stitch one, and then go into the top of the chain next door, pull up my loop, and I'm done. And then it's just a case of hiding this little end here that you've just created. The other ones can stay inside, and you can also use this one from the top to help create the crease on the hat in a few moments when you pop him on. So there you go, there is your hat all done. Alright, so here is your added Christmas surprise. Now you've made these are gorgeous card holders, okay. Now if you follow the same pattern and you follow the what I'm about to tell you about each of them, you will be able to turn your snowman into your very first stuffy, which is a snowman stuffy, or a Santa stuffy. And all I've done here is used exactly the same yarn, exactly the same pattern, just with a couple of variations that I'm about to tell you about, and you'll be able to make your own cute version of Santa and a snowman. Have fun, everybody! Okay, so now this is a little sneaky extra for you. What I would like you to do is remake the snowman, but this time don't do the back section where the card's going to go. Ignore the instructions for placing a chain, okay, ignore the instructions for putting on a chain. for working over your chain, and just crochet around those 2 rows as you would normally do, so the stitch count would still be the same. Okay, follow the pattern all the way up until you get to row 22. At row 22 we lightly stuff in. I say lightly because I know I'm a nightmare and I overstuff, but as you're doing it you want to stuff it and push at the bottom so it sits flat. Okay, that way he will be sitting flat on your table or wherever you decide to put him. Okay, so you carry on stuffing and you pop it in and you keep going until it's at a nice consistency. All right, and then we do the close. Now you can get away with adding a little more stuffing before the last row of closing. Okay, so before row 24 you can add a little bit more stuffing, so don't be worried about overstuffing and then trying to keep it poked in as you're working it. You don't need to worry about that. You can add some more in. And then when you get to the end of row 24, before you finish off your stitching, add another decrease. Okay, so just decrease once more round, give yourself a nice amount to sew in the ends, and then you can sew all this top section together. All right, just weave it backwards and forwards a few times to seal it, because remember there is going to be a hat on top of his flat head, so you really don't have to worry too much, okay, about this opening a little bit and stuffing being on show and things like that. Stuffing your amigurumi. Take small sections, poke them through the top hole, poke them all the way to the bottom. Okay, you can take larger lumps, but it sometimes curls over the work and makes it a little bit harder to get in. As I said in the original video, just keep stuffing. Now what I've also done is, as I'm stuffing it, I have my little finger sitting along the bottom, so it means then that that is my fixed flat base there. So once I push to my finger, I know not to carry on pushing any more in. So again, keep pushing, keep stuffing. And what I like to do is, it looks a bit cheeky, but I start pushing from the outside, the inside. As I push it down, once it starts to get a bit more solid, I poke my finger right in the middle and then I rotate my finger. That way it pushes the stuffing out evenly all the way around. And then with the leftover stuffing, I just fill the hole that I've created like that. And also make it again for when you get to the neck, because what you want to do is have half stuffing in the bottom, half stuffing in the head to help support the neck, especially on some of the large projects. This one's not too bad, so you won't get a wiggly neck on this one, we hope. Right, so we just keep stuffing. A little bit more should do it. Now I don't really over stuff the head as such. Again, I'm doing a little trick with the finger where I'm rotating it round in the hopes that it will give me a nice round head. But of course you can use your hand as a guide as well. A little bit more. Just like that. And then push it down. So then when you do your decrease rounds, just move your finger around as you go and push the stuffing out the way as you're working. That way it doesn't get caught and you don't end up pulling it through your work. Add in your gumdrop buttons to your amigurumi. And take your yarn, place it over your finger, measure down to where you want your first gumdrop button to be. Pull a loop through, hook over, pull through, pull a loose end tight. Now chain one, chain one, and around the stitch we will work 4 incomplete half double crochets. And then pull out, yarn over and pull through all 5 loops on your hook. Turn your work. Alright, so what we're now going to do is we will place our hook under the next stitch back, hook over, pull up a loop, and then complete a slip stitch. Make sure it's nice and tight. Hook over, pull through again, pull up a nice amount of yarn, cut it off, okay, and make your knot nice and tight. Then taking your second strand of yarn, we will tie a double knot. Once you've tied your knot, to hide your ends, pop your sewing needle through your stitch and into the snowman. Poke it through, not all the way, because you need to add your yarn into your sewing needle. Okay, and then poke it all the way through till it comes out the back. Then just pull your yarn through like that. Okay, make sure that both of them are nice and tight. Now this is where I like to be a bit cheeky, because it's a dark colour and we can't hide this one. I pull it slightly out and I push it in. Push in the body of the work. Then when I cut my yarn, the tail end that's left in the work slides back into it, so it's completely hidden. Okay, and then we just got to give our little gumdrop button a wiggle to make sure it's nice and pokey out, and you're done. Right, so we are back to attach our arms onto our little snowman stuffy. So we are going to do the same technique with this little guy as we did when we made his little gift card friend. Right, so what we do is we grab our yarn and we work out where we want our placement to be. Okay, let's take this off so you can see it a little bit better. Right, so as you can see, that's where our decreases are. Now for this one, I'm going to put mine between my 2 and my 3 because a kid built it, so it doesn't really matter overly. Right, so I'm going to pop my hook in and where I want that arm to be. I'm going to pull up my loop, hook over and chain 10. And then in my second chain from the hook, I'm going to do a slip stitch. And another slip stitch in the next. And one more in the third. Then I'm going to chain up 4. Is the camera focusing? And then I'm going to go a second chain from the hook. I'm going to add a slip stitch and then another slip stitch in the third, and then I am going to, so that's the fourth, and then we are just going to run our slip stitches back along our chain until we get to our snowman body again. Making sure that I bring up both bits of yarn as I'm working along. There we go. Right, so and now I'm back at the body. I am going to place a slip stitch. I think I'm going to go a little bit one up. Okay, so one stitch up and add my slip stitch, hook over and pull through again and pull up my yarn, cut it off, and now tighten that knot as tight as I can, and the same with there. And now what we do is we are just going to weave our ends up and down, like maybe once up, once down, and then the remainder we can stick in the body. Alright, and so now let's move on to arm number 2. You'll do exactly the same. Choose where you want to place it. It doesn't have to be exactly in the same spot. It can be up, it can be down, it could be sort of angled slightly off. The choice is up to you. Right, so what we're doing now is we're going to try and find the placement for our eyes, our beard as best as possible. So working from your nose, we're going to count 5, and then we're going to go up 2, which should by rights be on our decrease round. Okay, so we are going to pull up or pull through our yarn. Now we're going to turn our work slightly. What we're going to be doing is slip stitching around our rows, working downwards. So you pop your hook in and just pop it under the stitch, and then hook your loop yarn over and pull up a loop and pull it straight through. We're going to do that 3 times. Okay, so we've done this one, so we're now coming down for our next one. Sorry about catching the camera. 3. Now we're going to turn our little Santa slightly, because we want to come in at an angle. So we're going to come in at an angle for the next one. Right, so now we're going to run across the bottom for a count of 5. So pop it back in where it came out, under the stitch, try and leave the stuff in behind. Hook over, pull up your loop and pull it through for your slip stitch. So that's number 1. Back in again. Number 2. Number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Okay, now we're going to go across one at an angle. And now we're going to come up the side again for a count of 4. Going up the side for a count of 4. There we go. So that is our snowman, our Father Christmas's beard. Right, so once this is done, you should have 15 little loops going round. If not, just add an extra one. Right. Now on to row 2 for the beard. Now for that one, we will turn our work. Okay, we are going to chain 1, and then into that very first, or into, sorry, I should say under that very first V, you place your hook through both, pull up a loop and do a single stitch. We're going to do a single stitch under the second, and then under the third we are going to do a half double crochet, under the fourth a half double crochet, under the fifth we are going to do a double crochet, it's a little bit fiddly as you can see. Under the sixth we will do another double crochet, number 7, double crochet, number 8, double crochet, number 9 is a double crochet, and number 10 is a double crochet. Number 11 and 12 are a half double crochet, I would say to you this is the hardest part of the entire project, so if you need to stop and slow, go for it. And then we are on to the next 3, which is taking you up to stitch 15. We are just doing single crochet. There we go, just like that. Now if you'd like a fuller beard, it can be done. What we're going to do is, what we're going to do is one more pass of it. Okay, so we are just going to, we're going to do one more pass at it. So what we're going to do is we are going to turn our work, and into our very first stitch that we've created we are going to do a slip stitch. Into the second is a slip stitch, and the third is a slip stitch. Now our fourth and our fifth are stitches, our sixth is a half stitch, 7 is a double crochet, so is number 8, and number 9 is a double crochet, and so is 10. Right, so and the next step is a double crochet into the next 2 stitches. Now we're going to do a half double crochet into the next 2. And then a single into the last 2. Okay, just like that. So by the end of this round it looks like this. Now if you would like to add another row, you can carry on with me. If not, and you're happy with the length of his beard, stop now and tie in and tie your ends, and we'll move on to the next section. Right, for those of you who want a longer beard, what we're going to do is we are going to turn our work. We are going to chain 1. Right, so we are going to then slip stitch for 3. Then into the next 2 we are going to do a single crochet. And our next 2 are going to be half double crochets again. I really shouldn't have chosen this yarn, should I? Half double crochet. Now we're going to do a 2 double crochets, so a double crochet increase in the next stitch, and then a double crochet increase into the next stitch. There we go, he's looking quite cute, isn't he now? A double crochet increase into the next stitch. So in total again we've done 3 double crochet increases. And now we're going to do a half double crochet into the next 2, a stitch into the next a single crochet into the next 2, and then end up with 3 slip stitches working along the edge. Might need a 4th. Right, so I've put in an extra 4th. That's just because I think my stitches are off, but that's where you can muck around with it, is the edge there, just with the slip stitch. So, and that is of Father Christmas's beard. So you just finish it off like that and weave in your end along the edge and tuck it in so it's out of the way underneath the hat. Right, so for his beard, for his moustache, we will surface crochet again, and then we're just going to place a single stitch in each. So I'm going to let you loose on this bit, and I'm going to let you decide which way round, whether you want a straight, a wiggly, or upturned. I'm going to leave you to play around with that. Now remember, however your surface crocheting sits, and that is going to be the shape. Right, so have some fun with it. Don't tie off the very first end, because then when it comes to undoing it, if you need to, it will be a lot easier on you. All you do is at the end, like I do, I just give it a tug and then I sew it, sew it closed. All right, so have fun with making your moustache. Oh, a little tip, when sewing on your hat, don't forget, once you've sewed this front section, stick some stuffing up there to hold it up before you then sew it round the back. Right, it just gives it a little bit extra shape and brings it up onto the head a little bit more if you can add a bit of stuffing. All right, so have fun finishing him off, and I can't wait to see your pictures.